Good morning. My name is Jess Michael, and I am president of the Board of Trustees here at Mainline Unitarian Church, and I'd like to welcome you this morning. This is my last announcement. Very last one. So thank you. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm religious freedom and celebrate diversity. We believe all people are inherently worthy and dignified. Whoever you are, whatever your background or personal circumstance, you are welcome here. We gather in a loving community of faith to support one another as we search for meaning and purpose, working together to bring compassion, equity, and responsible stewardship to the world we share. An especially warm welcome to those of you who are visiting today, whether here in person or online. We encourage you to stop by the welcome table in the atrium, to visit our website, and to find out more about our church. Our guest minister this morning is the Reverend Charlie Dieterich. Reverend Dieterich is a retired Unitarian Universalist minister currently living in New Jersey. A graduate of Starr King School for the Ministry in California, he has worked at congregations in Louisiana, New Jersey, Virginia, and most recently, Erie, Pennsylvania. He trained in chaplaincy at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Palo Alto, California, and in New Orleans. Reverend Charlie continues his ministry with the UU Trauma Response Ministry and occasionally guest speaking. Dawn Starr is our Director of Lifespan Education. Michael Cohen will be our worship associate, and we'll have music on video from Brian Collins. I have one quick announcement this morning. The board is looking for GA delegates. So if you're planning on attending, please email me or the staff and let us know if you are willing to represent MLUC at GA. If you are thinking about attending virtually, but you're hesitating because of the cost, please reach out to me or to Rich, and the board may be able to help you with registration costs. Just as a reminder, you can access the weekly church newsletter, e-notes, and see more information on any highlighted events. Just go to the news section of the website, and there's an archive of newsletters that you can get to anytime, and this week's newsletter will be at the top. Finally, we are having a fire drill today, and Rich is going to tell us more about it.
So one of my responsibilities at the church is to periodically remind everyone what we need to do when we hear the fire alarm go off. You won't mistake it, you'll hear it. When the alarm sounds, there's no way you can tell if this is a false alarm, is it a drill, is it an actual fire, or one of those other emergency situations that we hear about all too frequently in the news. It's not your responsibility to figure that out. When the alarm goes off, we all have to respond the same way every time. This is why we do have occasional drills. When we hear the alarm, it's our job to safely leave the building, follow the driveway in the front of the church, around past the parsonage, to the exit, cross the street, and gather in Ditmar Park. I know it's far away, but the park is where we gather no matter what part of the building we were in when the alarm sounds. And assembling there means that we're not in the way of fire equipment as it arrives, and we're a safe distance from the building no matter what's going on. Please don't be tempted to loiter in the driveway in the front of the church. Just keep going. If you're a parent whose child is somewhere else in the building in a classroom, it's essential that you let them leave the building with their teachers and their class. Do not go into the burning building to find them. They are in the care of someone who knows the best way to get out, and you will meet them in the park. Every child needs to be accounted for in the park before we can return. And it creates a dangerous amount of confusion if children leave their class groups before they're accounted for. People in this room leave the building primarily through those two glass doors, the two sets of glass doors back there. That takes you out to the patio where you don't loiter, but you follow the paved path out to the driveway and then around the driveway exit. Do not go through the doors that you came into the room. Those lead to the burning building. So, out the glass doors. Now, there's one exception to this, is that if you see that the leftmost door is open, and you see there's an usher standing there, wave to us, everybody, yep, thank you. If that door is open and they're waving, you can go straight through that door, right down, straight ahead, past the Greeley Library, past the kitchen, into the fire tower, and then out the fire exit door there to the driveway, and then keep going. That will mean that somebody has ascertained it's safe to do that. If they're not there, don't open the doors to the building. Just go out the glass doors. Once it's safe to return, Dawn Star, who will be at Ditmar Park with the coolest piece of technology the church owns. So don't come back until you hear Dawn Star say it's safe to return. Thank you very much for following these instructions and for keeping everyone safe.
And finally, now, please join me in our mission. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
I will be reading our chalice lighting this morning, but I want to invite Kelly Nastasi and her daughters to come up and actually physically light the chalice. Kelly has been associated with MLUC for a long time, and we are really excited to have her back with us this summer as our summer faith development teacher for the kids. And this is her first Sunday because it's the first Sunday of summer. We are excited to have her with us. Spirit of life, we enter into this season of Memorial Day surrounded by such a cloud of witnesses. We remember all those who are currently serving in the armed forces, and we pray for their safe return home. We also acknowledge that there are service members who will not return, and we light this chalice to honor their service and their sacrifice. We also give thanks for all those who have served in the nation's armed services. Those who have not served cannot fully imagine the experience of war, but we do know war's aftermath and the toll that it can take on the human heart. We remember and acknowledge those whom we have loved and lost. We hold their names and their faces in our mind's eye. We recall the gifts they gave us through the strength of their being, the depth of their love, the courage of their dying, and the fullness of their living. In the holy quiet of this hour, they live with us in blessed memory. We light this chalice as a tribute to all that they have meant to us. Amen.
Just shipped out of small town USA to be all that we could be, my brother and me. G.I. Joe's up through the Green Beret to midnight at this checkpoint on the border of Kuwait. Billy pulls a picture of his young wife from his pack. He says, well, what's a brother worth if he ain't got your back? And we're brothers till the end of time. And I got yours, you got mine, forgotten all the world to see. And until our dying day, we're gonna stick together, come what may. And on these words you can believe, I'll cover you if you cover me. Daddy worked the mill from dawn to dusk. He spent his years putting the fear of God in both of us. He'd say, honest out of Sunday school keeps a good boy out of jail. But there comes a time in every young man's life he's gonna raise a little hell. Well, I found myself on the wrong end of the law a time or two. But you took those calls and paid that bail, 'cause you knew I'd do the same for you. And we're brothers till the end of time, and I got yours, and you got mine. Forgotten all the world to see. And until I die and day, we're gonna stick together, come what may. And on these words you can't believe that I'll cover you if you cover me. Just then the night was shattered, the silence split in two. The sands ablaze with gunfire, there's an ambush coming through. Now you're out for cover, but I called out your name, but I heard nothing. Here we are back in small town USA, with trembling hands resting on the box where the stars and stripes are laid. Mama clutches her Bible as the veterans all salute. I wanna cry but I ain't got time, 'cause I got a job to do. There's a widow and a baby living on the edge of town. But your boy won't want for nothing, brother, and I won't let you down. We're brothers till the end of time, and I got yours, you got mine. Forgotten all the world to see. And until my dying day, I'm gonna keep my promise, come what may. Repay your sacrifice for me. And on these words you can believe that I'll cover you, because you covered me. Because you covered me.
Good morning. I thank you for inviting me to come preach on this Memorial Day weekend Sunday. The purpose of Memorial Day is to be reminded of our obligations to those who died while in military service. It's not a celebration like July 4th or Labor Day. It's not an anniversary like President's Day, or a holiday for some subset of the American people, like Veterans Day. It's a day of ritual and remembrance for those who have died. It's an obligation for all who live in our nation to visit graves of deceased service members. The 1868 Declaration of Memorial Day reads in part, "Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledge to aid and assist those who they have left among us. The sacred charge upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors' widow and orphan." This morning's sermon is about rituals. I'm glad you began the service with a Memorial Day prayer and a prelude which speaks of a soldier's death. Two rituals to remember the enduring duty of Memorial Day. My sermon this morning will be about a more simple everyday ritual, that of eating together. As summer comes, perhaps you will be attending some cookouts. Maybe some people are already. Picnics or campfires. Do you ever think about the choices you make while preparing whatever you're doing for the cookout? Who does what? What things are served and when? How much of what you do is your own personal ritual, and how much of it is spontaneous? Sadly, this past week, our nation observed another all too common ritual. We have another story of gunfire in a school and the deaths of young children. Horrific footage fills the 24-hour news cycle. Armchair analysts make meaning of the chaos. As a nation, the United States of America is still learning how to mourn such cruel acts. I brought a single red rose from my yard, which I picked this morning, and I'm going to place it by the chalice. The flower won't bring back any lives. It won't restore the losses to the families or a sense of safety for those who created community in that Texas school. The flower, like the flowers of Memorial Day, can only say, I remember. May we, with hearts and minds open, worship together.
When I was a little girl, my family only used our good china on very rare, very special occasions. Basically, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and pretty much only if family was coming to our house instead of us going to somebody else's house. Most of the time, we used these dishes. I actually went to the thrift store this week and found an actual Arkarot glass, which was all of the glasses that we had when I was a kid. We had Corelle dishes. We had paper napkins. And we had these stainless steel flatware, which you can't see from down there, I don't think, but they've got like a bamboo pattern on their handle, very evocative of my childhood for me. So that was what we usually used. But on special occasions, I was the only girl in the family, and I was the only one who really cared whether we used the special stuff, but I got a lot of joy out of using the special stuff. First, we had a tablecloth. This one has an O embroidered on it. That was for Odgers, which was my great-great-grandmother's married initial. So I think the tablecloth is probably about 130 years old. And there's a matching set of napkins to go with, also with an O. And next, there were the dishes. There was an older set of dishes, but I didn't really like them, so we usually used these, which are not 130 years old. They're probably about 80 years old. They were my grandmother's china from when she got married in the 40s. There's a matching bowl. You'd put the bowl on top of the plate so you could eat your salad or soup in it first, and then you'd move on to the plate. Nobody else in the family thought that was a good idea. They were like, why don't we just all put it on one plate? But I was like, we will do it the right way. We also had silver. We had 2 sets of silver when I was a kid, and we do still have the other set, but we put it away because it wasn't big enough for my current household configuration. So these are the ones that we have a set of 12 of, and they are also engraved with an O for Odgers. Although there's a little bit of a mystery about that because these knives aren't old enough for that to have been that grandmother's silver. They weren't manufactured until later, so I'm not sure what the story is with that. But this is what we would do. And there we were, ready for our fancy dinner. Oh, one more thing. We did have glasses. We didn't drink wine in my family, but we would still have a fancy glass for like juice or milk or something, and a plain glass for water. Which I'm probably not putting in the right place here, but there we go. When I was a kid, it didn't even occur to me to ask, why do we only use this stuff that I really like on special occasions? It was just the way it was. It did bring me joy to use the fancy things, and maybe my grandmother enjoyed it too. I think she enjoyed doing it with me, probably. But when I grew up and got married, it turned out that in my husband's family, they had a different idea about what you did with fancy dishes and silver. They had an idea that you used them all the time because they were beautiful and they made you happy, which was a totally different concept for me. And I learned a lot about bringing beauty and joy into the everyday from engaging with my new family. Now, in my house at home, we do some of both of those things. We do use that fancy silver every day. It's what's in our silverware drawer. It's what you pull out. My kids do know that they're not allowed to take that if they're packing a lunch. They need to pick something that's not as fancy if they're taking it out of the house. And we try not to lose it in the backyard. It's hard to actually hurt silverware unless it's plate and you have a dishwasher, but since it's not plate and I don't have a dishwasher, that's not a problem. But we don't actually use this china every day, and that's because although it's beautiful, it's also very fragile. And for a long time, we lived in a house with a concrete floor and 4 little kids, and so dishes just got broken all the time. No matter what we did. Nobody was mad, nobody was throwing things. It was just, things would fall and go, pow. And I do like this china, and it would make me sad if it all got broken. So it stays put away for now, although maybe someday it'll come out. Except for special occasions, we do get it out. But that lesson that I learned about bringing beauty and joy into my life every day, I do still do that. So instead of worrying about breaking this china, when I need dishes, I go to the thrift store, and I get any dish that I like that's white and china blue. And then I have dishes that sort of go together, are beautiful, but I don't care if they get broken because I bought them at the thrift store for $1.50. That way my table is pretty and I don't worry about it. And the fancy glasses, our favorite thing to do with those is to get them out for parties and drink sparkling cider in them and feel very chic. So I invite you to enjoy my family's fancy things for the rest of the service if you're staying in here. And I invite the children to join me in the atrium for dismissal to their classes.
All this talk about fancy china, I'm getting hungry for a very good Memorial Day dinner. Each month, MLUC selects a different charity to be our offering outreach partner and share half of what we collect in the sanctuary and online with that charity. And during the month of May, our offering outreach partner has been the Darby Creek Association, or DCVA. As you've been hearing throughout the month, the last couple of weeks, we've had a long association with DCVA. Many of us live in the Darby Creek watershed. The church is in the watershed. We get our water from the watershed, and we return the wastewater to it downstream. And we enjoy its beautiful paths and parks throughout the year. The watershed ranges from beautiful forests and streams and parks in its upper reaches to industrial wastelands as it nears the end of its piece in the Delaware River. It covers 77 square miles, and there's a population of about 500,000 people who live within the watershed. Its work is wide-ranging. It provides environmental education to schools and organizations. It sponsors cleanup campaigns. MLUC supports the association by providing volunteers for those efforts. And finally, the DCVA works with state and local governments to mount larger scale protective efforts to encourage good environmental practices. Those of you that are here in the sanctuary are encouraged to take out your wallets and put money in the collection plate so it can be shared. If you'd like, however, to make a paperless donation, you can do so, as the people who will be doing it online will be following the procedure of making their paperless donations by following the instructions that you see on the screen behind me, as well as on the screens in your online meeting. You can also use the Give link on the MLUC website. Please be generous.
How long have you been climbing up that hill? Your engine's running hot, you've lost all the will. You gotta find a way to give it another run, 'cause you've only got one. And how long is that list you need to check? And all the needless things you crossed off first has left you in a wreck, and regret pounds in your head just like a drum, 'cause you've only got one. There's only so many heartbeats, days and weeks and trips around the sun. So don't get caught up in counting out the cards that you've been dealt before you're done. This life's a hit and run, dust off and carry on, 'cause you've only got one. Have you ever loved with no hands on the wheel? Going freely where the wild wind blows, to feel what you can feel, and you shout it out with every breath left in your lungs, 'cause you've only got one. And have you ever laid it all out on the line, pouring out your soul like whiskey on the fire, burning out so bright until you're done, 'cause you've only got one. There's only so many heartbeats, days and weeks and trips around the sun. So don't get caught up in counting out the cards that you've been dealt before you're done. This life's a hit and run, dust off and carry on, 'cause you've only got one. You've only got one. There's only so many heartbeats, days and weeks and trips around the sun. So don't get caught up in counting out the cards that you've been dealt before you're done. This life's a hit and run, dust off and carry on. Carry on, 'cause you've only got one. You've only got one.
Although our guest musician is not with us today, he's here via recorded. He may be watching, so even though you might be doing this, it's okay to show your appreciation. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for the donations. These gifts help our church and our community make a difference. Candles of Community is the time during our service where we have personal sharing and show support. After each candle is lit, please join me in saying, "We hold you in our hearts." Following the comments that Reverend Charlie made about the Texas tragedy, I'd like to have the first candle lit on behalf of all the families that were impacted in Texas this week during the horrific shooting that took place on Tuesday. Although it is Memorial Day weekend, we should not be mourning these types of senseless acts of violence on Memorial Day. I hope that as a country we can do something other than offer our thoughts and prayers every time these mass shootings occur and feel that we've covered it. But as a religious congregation, let us recognize and mourn the lives of the 19 young people, the 2 adult teachers who were killed, that has left such a hole in the hearts of parents, grandparents, family, and friends who were left behind. For all those connected to the tragedy, we hold you in our hearts. Eileen and Jeff Moran light a candle on behalf of their daughter-in-law, Andrea Matre. Her mother passed away at the age of 92 in Hungary after a long and productive life. For Andrea and her family, as well as Eileen and Jeff, we hold you in our hearts. Jean-Marie Baldwin requests that we light 2 candles of concern. The first for her sister, Sally Flanagan, who will be having heart surgery after they've dissolved a blood clot, and the second candle for Jean-Marie's son, Brendan Baldwin, who's experiencing significant pressure and stress in his business. For Sally, Brendan, Jean-Marie, we hold you in our hearts. We light a candle of sadness for Gina Trignani and her family. Gina's mother, Ellen, died peacefully at Gina's home on Thursday of this week after a long battle with Alzheimer's. For Gina, Don Wilson, and Evan Kirk, we hold you in our hearts. Dave Hunter would like to have a candle lit for Gary and Karen Poole. Gary is Dave Hunter's best friend from junior and senior high school. And Gary's wife, Karen, has advanced breast cancer and is under hospice care. For the entire Poole family, we hold you in our hearts. Margot Wirt would like to have a candle of concern lit for her friend, Joanna, who received a breast cancer diagnosis this week. For Margot, and especially her friend Joanna, we hold you in our hearts. I'd like to have a candle lit for a musician that I've had the opportunity to meet and enjoy, who is also a close friend of today's guest musician, Brian. His name is John Driscoll Hopkins. And last week, and you may have heard this in the news because it was reported. John is a member of the Zach Brown Band. He announced that he's been diagnosed with ALS. And it is a horrible disease. And he's had symptoms for the last 2 years, but he only got his diagnosis recently. The disease is progressing slowly, so we hope that he'll be with us for a while. For John, and he's got 3 young children. He's got a beautiful wife. So for John Hopkins and his family, his friends, his fans, we hold you in our hearts. And for all the joys and sorrows that are still being held, some too deep for words, we light one more candle.
But I just get by paying my bills. Don't drive no fancy car, no house on land. I don't need no top shelf whiskey or wine, 'cause I've got your heart and baby you're on mine. But I've never had much of anything, but everything about you makes me feel like a king. 'Cause we got love that shines like gold, like treasure in my soul. I never let you go, darling. You've got a kiss that's money in the bank, and I've got you to thank for giving me the taste of the finer things. You got them lips, cherry Corvette red. You don't Perignon going straight through my head. Those diamonds in your eyes, Tiffany blue. It's priceless what we got, baby, me and you. 'Cause we got love that shines like gold, like treasure in my soul. I never let you go, darling. You got a kiss that's money in the bank, and I've got you to thank for giving me the taste of the finer things. Hey, darling, the finer things, yeah. Well, now our pockets may be empty, but we're living so rich. And I feel like the luckiest son of a darling. We got love that shines like gold, like treasure in my soul. I'll never let you go, darling. You got a kiss that's money in the bank, and I've got you to thank for giving me the taste of. We got a love that shines like gold, like treasure in my soul. I'll never let you go, darling. You got a kiss that's money in the bank, and I've got you to thank for giving me the taste of the finer things. Hey, darling, the finer things, yeah. Hey,
All right. Today's reading is a poem by Marge Percy, and it's called To Be of Use. Our hymnal has a portion of that poem. It's reading number 567, but you don't have to open up your hymnals to follow with me. Now, in today's reflective reading, there are three terms that we would like for you to be particularly aware of and paying attention to. The first is a parlor general. That is an outsider who comments on what others should do, sort of like an armchair quarterback. The second term is an amphora, which is a clay storage container used in ancient Greece to carry oil and wine. The surface of the amphora was often decorated with patterns, and some were very beautiful, sort of like a beautiful wine bottle that you might see today. Although not all wine bottles are beautiful, but there are some that are very beautiful. And the third is the Hopi people of Arizona. They're a tribe of Native Americans known for their work in ceramics, including cream-colored pots with geometric decorations that use methods developed before the Spanish arrived. So Reverend Charlie said that he'll be giving a quiz at the end of the service, so those might be on the test. I hope you were paying attention. To be of use. The people I love the best jump into work head first, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with sure strokes, almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust, but the thing worth doing, well done, has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine and oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know that they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real.
I think we're on a roll here. For this morning's topic, I want to start by teaching you a couple of more words. Some of you, and I know there's some people in row 4 who know them, but for many of you, they may be new. The first one is pericope. Can you say that? Pericope? Okay. A pericope is a passage, usually from the Bible. It could be a story, a wise saying, or a parable, but it's one complete thought. Like the story of the Good Samaritan is a pericope. Or each one of the 10 Commandments is its own pericope. As Unitarian Universalists, we're free to speak on anything we want on Sunday morning. It could be a bit of poetry. It could be the Sunday comics, a popular movie, wherever we find inspiration. And my inspiration today is a ceramic tile, which might appear up there in a moment, that I saw in an Oakland, California subway station. Now, once you have a pericope, remember that word? The next thing you do is exegesis. Can you say exegesis? That's Jesus with a G, not Jesus with a J. Exegesis. An exegesis is a close reading with hopes of finding inspiration in the exegetical analysis. So today I am going to exegete a ceramic tile. This particular ceramic tile comes from California. It was a hand-painted ceramic tile, one of many in a wall mural in an Oakland, California subway station. There were a big set of tiles, and in the center, there were some that explained what the whole thing was all about. I'll read you what the center tile says in that collection. Firestorm Community Mural Project. This mural is dedicated to the survivors of the 1991 Oakland Hills firestorm. Their stories expressed here in over 2,000 handmade tiles reflect and pay tribute to the human spirit and its capacity to overcome tragedy and loss. Sponsored by the Office of Mayor, October 1994. The Oakland Hills firestorm was an incredibly fast-moving fire, which leveled part of that city in a 2-hour period on a Sunday afternoon. At its peak, one house was destroyed every 11 seconds. Many of the mural's tiles show things that were lost in the firestorm. A bicycle, a church, a house. The tile that I selected for my reflection today was unique in that it offers us advice. And you've been looking at a picture of the tile. We can put that back up again for a moment if we might. It seems to be signed by somebody named Marion Baldwin. Marion's tile tells the subway riders a deep truth. Always use your best china. The picture shows 6 place settings, and I imagine that those plates and goblets were a gift to Marion from someone. Perhaps they were wedding gifts. A gift that was carefully put away until some special occasion. And because it's part of the firestorm mural, I assume that the box of plates and cups was lost when the Oakland Hills burned on October 19th, 1991. That's 30 years. Some of you may know this already, but shared tragedies like the Oakland firestorm change people. They can cause people to rethink their lives and their purposes. And I'm only speculating about the prophet Marion, but I think she was transformed as well. Always use your best china, she wrote. Where do these prophetic words take you? What do they mean to you? When I first encountered this great teaching, I thought about my grandmother's Wedgwood plates, which fine china that was made in Staffordshire, England, somehow got its way to New Jersey. I inherited it years ago. I use them once a year at Thanksgiving, but mostly they just sit on a box in the shelf. That was my first thought reading Best China. But then I had to consider 2 other words in the saying. Always use. Always? If I was going to use the Wedgwood, won't it fade or chip and not be worth as much? If I always use the Wedgwood, maybe someone will drop one. And then my dozen plates will become a partial set. And won't it stop being my best china and turn into my everyday china? So I found myself wanting relief. You can have your own thoughts here, but I found myself wanting relief. I wanted to bargain with the prophet. I wanted to be in control here. I wanted to be able to pick and choose when it was appropriate to use my best china. Maybe some of you were feeling that way too. You know the saying in the Bible, love your enemy? I know that I tend to want to change that little pericope to tolerate your enemy. It's a well-known phenomenon in religion. Over generations, hard instructions are limited down, softened, to become more palatable. So this ceramic tile is only from 1994. It really hasn't had time to soften, time to fade or be rewritten. So I guess whenever I have a guest, I should use my best plates, not the paper ones, which I thought were perfectly appropriate for the hot dogs and hamburgers tomorrow. Instead, I will haul out the best china that I have, and also the best glassware. Not those plastic solo cups that come in different colors. You can write your name on the side. My best knives, my best forks, my best spoons. And why? Because my guests are worth it. This is basic hospitality. And in sacred texts of the past are full of stories about hospitality, because any guest could be the Buddha. Anyone coming through that door could be the prophet Elijah. Any visitor could be an angel. Actually, I cheated. I wonder if any of you noticed. I modified the words to today's sacred text. It doesn't say, whenever you have a guest, use your best china. It says, always. So as I understand it, this saddles me with an additional burden. Dinner tonight is going to be Kraft macaroni and cheese on Wedgwood. And in this way, I treat myself as I would treat the Buddha or Elijah or an angel. Do you treat yourself that way? If not, why not? So one of the cool things about exegesis, we're back to that word exegesis, is the opportunity to read a short passage from different points of view. As I understand it, religious exegesis is related to the legal analysis term called critical race theory, which has been in the news a bit lately. In that case, to fully analyze a phrase of law, it asks us to consider it from many points of view. For example, the Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment, a very timely question, involves reading it from the many points of view. The authors, the states, gun owners, the army, citizens, farmers, slave owners, and enslaved people. The words of the Second Amendment change meaning depending on who is reading them. And all of them must be examined. So back to the pericope and exegesis. Let's consider our pericope from several different points of view. We've already considered it what the host would hear. To fully welcome guests as if they were angels. And I briefly mentioned what a guest would hear. Do you treat yourself worthy of the finest things? How might the ritual of using fine china change how I treat myself? And then we consider the possible motivations of the prophet Marian. and of the office of mayor, for that matter. Why was it written? Why was this whole mural created? And don't forget to consider, what do these words mean to those who have never been fed on fine china, who have only been given leftovers at the back door of society? Those who never had a wedding, never inherited anything, or had their china destroyed or taken away. How does this pericope speak to them? And of course, I should stop pretending that any of us lives a Martha Stewart Dom Perignon lifestyle. One other way of understanding always use your best china is to make it be a metaphor. Think of best china's meaning being as hospitable as we can be. Our best food, our most comfortable chair, our time, our attention. Always use your best self. Exegesis isn't done yet. We can go further. Let us for a moment take the point of view of the china plates themselves when they hear, always use your best china. Do you hear the plates whispering up there in the china cabinet? Here's where Marge Piercy's metaphorical poem helps us, because she writes, Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries out for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. The pitcher cries out for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. How does that water pitcher that you inherited from Aunt Beatrice feel about life up there on the top shelf? Was it made to be displayed or to serve lemonade? How do your beautiful Christmas plates feel, stacked in the attic, doing nothing? Every day could be Christmas, you know. Pitchers cry out for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. Always use your best china. So my struggle with these prophetic words began when I missed the San Francisco-bound subway train and had 20 minutes to kill in the Oakland BART station. And these words shape how I make decisions today. They take me out of myself to see the worthiness of guests of all type. The words have taught me to see today as a day of usefulness and celebration. Don't wait, they say. There's one other part of exegesis, and this is a key point, and that is to examine the alternative meanings. Find places where you made assumptions about the words themselves. It's not up there, but that's okay. You remember the words by now. What assumptions did you make? Are there places where your personality, your social location, your family history shape how you assumed what the words were? In some cases, it's because the language itself changed, but 1993 is not that long ago. Because I saw this prophetic phrase while standing by myself on a subway platform, I assumed that the third word on the tile, the word your, was singular. Charlie, it said, Charlie, use your best china. I didn't consider that maybe it was plural. Maybe Marion Baldwin was speaking to her community. Oakland, she said, always use your best china. Or even bigger, America, always use your best china. Like the Hebrew prophets in exile, the prophet Marian spoke after her house and community had been burned to the ground. She might be saying to us all, use your best china while you still have it. 20th century professor of Universalist theology, Clarence Skinner, taught his students that while there was no hell beyond, we create hell here on earth. This past week, this past year, this entire decade, for that matter, has been full of hellish scenes of hatred, death, and destruction, and worst of all, indifference. Professor Skinner was right in two ways. The rifle attack in Texas created a hellish situation. The grief and anger will last for a very long time, just as it has from Sandy Hook or Las Vegas or the Pulse nightclub. And Professor Skinner was right that we create this hell on earth. When we stand by and criticize what others should have done in the traumatized community, are we being what Marge Piercy calls parlor generals? She also writes, I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. Marge Piercy invites us to consider the work of the world to be the mud which the ox cart travels through. Mud, just like the clay which workers shaped into vases and wine bottles. Through sustained hard work, even common mud, even the work of the world can be transformed into beauty. And like our mudslinging nation, the poem promises no quick solution, only appreciation that those who are working to put out the fire or bring the food in. But back to our ceramic tile. I want to thank Marian Baldwin. Thank her for expressing our frustration, grief, and her sadness that she put into her tile. Thank you for giving us a simple phrase to consider as we move through our nation's recovery from 1 million deaths, exhausted healthcare and emergency workers, and critical workers of all types, strained relationships, a world of invaders, opportunists, and influencers. We need to start using our best China now. As W.E.B. Du Bois wrote, now is the accepted time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season. It is today that our best work can be done, and not some future day or a future year. It is today that we fit ourselves for the greater usefulness of tomorrow. And when we do the work of the world, may we use our best China. Amen.
When I was young, my daddy set me down. Said it won't take a lifetime to figure it out. That life is short and regret is long, and all you need to get along is to look him in the eye, never shy from the truth. Treat a man the same way whether win or lose. Let your heart be your guide, and never let your friends down. And if you're gonna dream, boy, dream out loud. Yeah, if you're gonna dream, boy, dream out loud. It's a cross I bear, I think I want it well. Sometimes it takes me places a lot like hell. But when the sun's shining bright on this winding path, it's worth the weight of the world on my back. To look him in the eye and never shy from the truth. Treat a man the same way whether win or lose. Let your heart be your guide and never let your friends down. And if you're gonna dream, boy, dream out loud. Yeah, if you're gonna dream, boy, dream out loud. Oh, 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 oh. Just the music and me, held together by 6 strings. I think of Daddy's words every time I sing. So I look him in the eye, never shy from the truth. Treat a man the same way with a win or a lose. Let your heart be your guide and never let your friends down. And if you're gonna dream, boy, dream out loud. Yeah, if you're gonna dream, boy, dream out loud. Oh, 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 oh. And if you're gonna dream, boy, dream out loud. Go on and dream out loud. Dream out loud. Go on and dream out loud. Dream out loud.
Our closing words this morning have been adapted from 2 readings in the Gray Hymnal by Laura Lynn Bellamy and Elizabeth Seal Jones. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. We carry the light of our shared flame in our hearts as we leave this place, which is so dear to us. Amen.